I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm from Lakewood, which is adjacent to the city, and I'm a senior. I'm gonna graduate this spring. I always really enjoyed reading nonfiction as a child, and I had really good teachers in high school and middle school that really fostered an interest. They were really energetic and enthusiastic, and just did a really good job of, inspiring interest in me. I really like history because it kind of combines a lot of other subjects. If you're really interested in economics, you can study economics and history. If you're really interested in psychology or sociology, really any of the social sciences, you can kind of find that in history. And I really like that breadth that history provides. But really just, teachers that inspired interest in me. And, I knew that if I picked any other subject, I wouldn't enjoy it as much. So that's why history. I came to Ohio State. I'm in-state and, has a reputation for excellence, and everyone knows about it in Cleveland, where I'm from. Big school has a wide range of course offerings, which I really liked. You can find anything you want to learn about. You can find a professor that's an expert in it. And it's just enormous school, enormous resources, and all the alumni I knew were successful and were great people. I really like Dr. Baker. I take many of her courses. She just has really great material and really interesting lectures. I really like Dr. Caban. I prefer military history above all other subjects. So I study military history and I really like the classics. So I'm taking a class right now with Dr. Brown in the classics department, and Dr. Caban in military history was really good. And I think those are some of my favorite professors, probably Baker, Caban, and Dr. Brown. So my most recent internship at Ohio State was with the National Veterans Leadership Foundation. They're a nonprofit that helps military connected students. So that could be students on the GI Bill through their parents, or students that are veterans themselves. I was a data entry analyst and a program development intern. And I would mostly do research for the nonprofit. So I would compile lists of colleges and universities and their military friendliness. I would look at who ranks schools for military friendliness. I would do minor tasks like find good gift bag ideas from veteran-owned businesses, and I would present reports to the board. So it could range from little things to big things about reports about schools in Ohio that are really good at being friendly to their veteran students, and how we can emulate that, how we can help our member schools become friendlier for veterans, and what resources our schools have and what they should utilize. Just the experience, I think with history major, I thought that my paths were kind of limited to maybe becoming a teacher, becoming a professor, writing a book. My favorite element from the work was just seeing all the other things that were available to me. And the people that I worked with, my bosses, were Betsy, Jonathan, and Jim, and they all had corporate experience and experience running large businesses, and were great at what they did. And just seeing the tips that they would give me, I think I got a lot more out of it than I put in for them, I feel, because they would just provide me with great feedback, resources, tips for writing better emails, writing better reports, getting better at Excel. And I thought that experience was great. Also, I love doing research, going down kind of internet rabbit holes, compiling reports. I found really interesting and fun. History major skills really translate to business because, a lot of what business is you're doing research. In your, life, you're constantly making arguments, presenting, your side of things and your side of the case. And in history, that's exactly what you're doing. You're doing research, you're formulating theses, you're presenting things in a way that your reader can understand when you write papers. And I think that translates very well to business, because you need to convince people and you need to do research and show that you're right. And I think that there's just a direct correlation. When it comes to decision making, you're looking at the great decisions that people made in the past and what causes what effects. And history is really just the combination of just every great thing that's happened in the past. And you can kind of trace the legacies of different decisions. And when you study history, you look at those decisions and you look what drawbacks and what successes decisions had. So when it comes to business, you can really, when you're a historian, think about the impacts the decisions you're going to have on people around you, and the successes and pitfalls of every decision you make. They got a history major who can write really good reports, who can think clearly and write clearly. Just in-depth research, I think, was the thing I offered. best. I could kind of be exhaustive just from my history major experience at Ohio State, writing reports for the organization. The foundation was able to get great research. I was able to present it in a way to them that made sense, and I think that my time here at Ohio State as a history major really prepared me to do that. I think there's a very different way that history majors approach things than the other social sciences. I said before, I think that history majors have a breadth of study where they kind of incorporate a lot of the other social sciences, but I also think that the historical way of approaching research is kind of like a scientific approach. You look at the causes and effects of things, you're tracing trends and historical events in a way that an English major or a sociologist doesn't really do. So right now I'm doing kind of two things. I got into the Buckeye Social Entrepreneurship Program, BSEP, with my startup Solvum, which is a chaplaincy on demand service that I started with my brother, and I'm also working with other Ohio State students. And then also, as soon as I graduate, I'm enrolling in Teach for America. I've been accepted, and I am going to teach summer school this summer, and then I'm going to teach for 2 years up in my hometown of Cleveland. So that's immediately what I'm doing. I think history obviously prepared me for both of those. I think doing research for my startup and also teaching, you can see that history prepared me for that. Further goals, I think I might want to attend grad school and either get an MBA or go to law school. And I think that history prepared me for that, for just being able to do research and exposing me to a wide range of interests and opportunities here at Ohio State. On top of that, I really want to go back to Cleveland, my hometown, and I think the key to really helping cities is innovation, and I would love to work with any companies with that goal in mind. I think that I really want to go back home. I would really want to help out there. Whatever career I choose, I want to be in Cleveland. Kind of the beginning of my passion for social entrepreneurship program was back in Cleveland. After I graduated high school, I started working with the Sola Caritas Homelessness Ministry. I run a men's boarding house in Cleveland's Tremont neighborhood that can hold up to 8 men. And kind of the idea behind that was that homeless men, especially that are middle-aged or older, are one of the hardest groups to serve because there's not a lot of resources out for them yet. They're most likely to have been incarcerated. They're the most likely to struggle with homelessness, addiction. We provided a home for them, and the charity that I kind of started with my brother, and we have great support system up in Cleveland, has grown. We've already have 5 houses on the west side now, and I operate one of them. Seeing just my interactions with people, men that were victims of diseases of despair, addiction, people that can only use food stamps to buy groceries, that experience hardships. Those conversations I had with people, and then coming to Ohio State and joining the BSEP, Buckeye Social Entrepreneurship Program, kind of led me to start my company Solvum, because the idea behind Solvum is that we can provide chaplaincy on demand for people at any time. I think that that's one of my favorite things about history, is that when you look at leadership in the past, you can look at what great leaders have done, that analytical approach of decision making that studying history affords you. I really think history majors, when they look at internships, shouldn't get buttonholed into, 1 or 2 things. I think that when you're a history major, you think, oh, like my internship opportunities are, limited to doing research for the government in a new exhibition in a museum. I think that that is a great job, and if you can get it, but there's not a ton of those roles, and you should really look at a lot of other things. I went to the Fisher Career Fair every semester, and I talked to all these people that work at accounting firms and consultant firms. They're always like, what's your major? I'm like, history. And they're like, oh, well, I haven't talked to any history majors today. And they're not opposed to giving me interviews, giving me jobs necessarily. If you can show that you're passionate about things, you can show that you're interested in, and you don't really have to even pitch history that hard. They know what they're getting in a history major. They're getting someone who can do great research. They're getting someone who can think and write clearly and make good arguments. And if you can show them that, then I think that there's a lot of other opportunities. As if you're considering internships as a history major, you shouldn't rule out anything. Throw yourself in there and apply. My parents were very much like, oh, like you like history? Great. But I know a lot of parents that were thinking, if their kid enrolls in history, like, oh, why not become an accountant? Or like, why not study engineering? Or jobs that make money, or majors that make money, is what they always say. And I think that history really gives you the skills to thrive in fields that you can definitely make money in and can definitely be successful and make an impact in. And I think that, parents, if you're talking to your children and they're considering being a history major, support them in that. I think that what really is good about history majors is that you learn a lot of these skills, and you'd be surprised what you're qualified to do as a history major. I remember I was in this interview for a consulting job, and they were asking me what my biggest weakness was, and I was like, I don't know a lot of like the business lingo, and I don't know what synergy means. And I think that marketing majors, they're in that kind of business climate. They might be a little bit better at Microsoft than you, Excel, but I think that you have better research skills than them if you're a history major. And I think that you compare quite favorably. They might have the typical major and they might have the intentions to get a business job, and they're kind of like, I'm a marketing major, this is what I'm qualified to do. But as a history major, I really think you're qualified to do a lot of things the marketing majors are qualified to do as well. You can use historical analysis to look at marketing, and you might not be kind of entrenched in that business system and know those business words, but I think that you match favorably.